Hi, everybody. Matt Lawton here. This is the Astrological Winds channel. Going to take a look at the astrological weather report for the week of July 21st through 27th today. And the main thing we're going to be looking at this week is Leo-ness. The sun going into Leo, and then immediately we're going to get a new moon in Leo. And once again, hitting those four outer planets that have all just changed signs recently this year, and are at the beginning of their signs. And then we also have a very interesting Venus square Mars conjunct the South Node. So those are the main three things I'm going to be talking about today. Just a little bit of business first. The Astrological Winds channel is a free video blog and YouTube channel. And if you like what you're seeing, I'd really like you to become a follower if you have a YouTube account. And don't forget, when you become a follower, you need to turn the notifications on, or you're not going to know when I post the blog. Also, it is free. And I really appreciate everyone who sent the link along to other people. And if there's someone else you can think of, or if you're new to the blog, you know some people that might be interested in, I'd really appreciate it if you pay it forward for me and pass the link along. Really, really appreciate that. Thank you. Also, it is available on podcasts. It's just an audio feed of the very same thing you're watching on video. And I always felt like, that frees you up to do other things. That, you can sometimes when you're, audio, like you're stuck. But like with video, you could be driving your car to work or whatever. I mean, the audio, you can get the audio feed while you're driving your car to work and, be able to, listen to the blog. Man, I know we all have busy lives. So, and it has been a podcast actually long before it was a YouTube channel. It's been a YouTube channel for years now, 6, 7 years, but it's a podcast for many years before that. Also, if you have an Instagram account, Astrological Winds channel does too. If you become a follower, that's another place where you'll see the link show up in your newsreel every week. And sometimes I do put some extra information on just the Instagram. The other place to always find me is on www.astrologicalwinds, not Winds Channel, Winds.com. And that's my website. Not only does it have a blogs tab on top that has the current blog, a link to the current blog, but it has blogs from the past few months there. So if you need to go back and check out the monthly for this month or whatever, the annual for this year or last week's or whatever, they're still there. They're available for you. And that also is the place where you can find my professional services. I've been a professional astrologer for over 20 years. I've been doing charts for over 20 years professionally, was trained for 7 years to do that. So I'd love to do that for you. In fact, that's the best way to support me, actually. That's my job basically. So I'd love to, when you're ready for a reading or someone that is, I am ready and willing and able to do that for you. I can work with you if you need to make payments on the cost. Just check out the website because it does, there's a bunch of different kinds of readings that I do, relocation, whatever, birth charts, different kinds of things, predictive. And if you have a group, same thing. I do different things for groups. So anyway, let's get into this. So the first thing I just want to mention, I talked about the Mercury retrograde last week. And if you missed that blog, you should go back and listen to it. Because you really want to hear about this Mercury retrograde because it's really affecting our summer in the northern hemisphere the next couple months and a lot of stuff. And I just want to bring up right away, like one of the big things it's already, you can see so easily if you look for it, the signatures within society on the newsreel, basically, So one of the things that Mercury retrograde does, and I talked about this last week in particular with Leo, is it may bring back decisions that we made in the past. And like we may have to deal with them and they may mess us up, and like what is big on the newsreel this week? Again, something from the past that will not go away in the United States, and that is the Epstein files and what is actually in them, and I don't think like either side has the higher ground politically in this. I think if those things are ever fully exposed, you're going to find both sides are involved. But just look at how that's really gotten back, and like it's kind of broken down a lot of communications, people getting really arrogant about it, acting like an overloaded Leo who's not being heard and screaming and yelling and stubborn and all that stuff. So like there's a really great example of that energy is my point. So go back and check out last week's blog if you haven't, and really get a catch up on how that Mercury retrograde in Leo is going to be affecting us. But speaking of Leo, on Tuesday, tomorrow, the sun goes into Leo. So, first of all, that's the sun's sign. That's the sign that the sun rules. So, the sun is all about me, us, our lives, our journey, ourselves, our egos. It's all about you. It's what makes you unique. It's what makes every one of us on this planet a special and unique person in some way or another, like and so this when the sun goes into Leo time of the year, that's when we usually have an opportunity to really express ourselves. That old R&B song, express yourself, whatever you do it good. This is the time to do that. This is the time to put yourself out there and show the world what your uniqueness is, what your talents are, what you are good at right now. And what that does is bring out one of the natural qualities of Leo, and that when we are doing what we're supposed to do and we are doing that well, we naturally become what? A leader, right? In doing that we get recognized for the talent that we have in some kind of certain field, perhaps in our career, or just some of the things that we do, and then all of a sudden we find ourselves in a leadership position. People recognize that in us and they give that to us. And it may be like just on an energetic level where people are coming to you, or it may actually be like, a role that has like a name attached to it, where you get some kind of like position that, or name that shows that you are an authority. So that's, really at the base of Leo, is that it's this seeking out to be the center of attention, really, really wanting to do that. And when the sun's in Leo, we're very willful about that, about pushing that. So that's the unfortunate part about that too, that it can be what the downfall of Leo is pride. And I've said this before, pride is something that can even hurt the gods. It can be the downfall of the gods, even, to come across as arrogant, to come across as self righteous, to come across as being very stubborn about our own ideas. And it just is showing other people that we're being very prideful and very egotistical, So that can be the downfall of Leo, is when we take that too far, that need to be the center of attention, that need for recognition, that need for but in general, Leo is a very positive energy. It's very extroverted. It wants to express love and affection. It's the heart, it can be very generous energy, it's just that it can get very pushy at times in what it believes in and its own creative way of dealing with things. And then that is what can make it very difficult for us to make agreements with others, where we can just get too uncompromising, in the way that we are. And sometimes, sticking up like that is actually, once again, a strength. When you are not compromising about certain things that you really believe in, you can actually gain a lot of respect like that. But that also, when you don't know when to back down, and it becomes a very personal thing, and people can see that it's this very egotistical thing, then all of a sudden it's not so admirable of a quality anymore, right? It becomes very selfish energy. But Sun and Leo makes us very persistent in pushing our goals and having this need to be recognized as someone important, you know. So then Wednesday, the one other thing I wanted to talk about before I get into the new moon is on Wednesday, Venus is square Mars conjunct the south node right now. So Venus is actually what we call at the bendings or at the bends of the nodes. When it's square the south node, it means it's also square the north node because the nodal axis is always exactly opposite one another. So when you're a planet and you're square one of them, that means you're square both of them. And whenever a planet is squaring the nodal axis or at the bendings, it's under a lot of stress. And this shows that relationships are under a lot of stress this week, and especially relationships that are based on past. Like a lot of our past relationships are in a very tense place right now. This is showing, and so it's going to test relationships very much this week. And you think about Mercury retrograde in Leo, and the sun just going into Leo, and that's a very me first kind of energy, right? That falls right into this again. See once again how I always love to point this out to you guys. These energies don't work in a vacuum. They're working together, right? So this can make it very difficult to get along with others. It's hard to cooperate. And certain relationships this week may just be like a nonstop argument, basically. Also with the nodal axis involved, it shows you may spend a lot of time this week dealing with disputes within communities or groups to the point where the dispute can get so intense it can actually damage that community or group's reputation for good. Like, so when you think, once again, let's just wind back a little bit of this Epstein thing as an example, right? Like, how, we're watching even like the followers of politicians dividing up within their groups over this. So so it can do a lot of damage to groups. But on a personal level, when you think about Venus squaring Mars, the south node, it's most likely going to be relationships that have some sexual energy underneath them, power issues with sexual energy. It may be rooted in the way that, one party is really frustrated with the other party and always trying to get their way and pushing always and feeling like that person is very, very aggressive. So this can bring a lot of discord up in relationships, especially ones that have any romance or sexual energy involved. You may basically start to get to that point where you're not willing to put up with the traits of others who are pushing like that. Or if it's even a relationship that's been close before, there may be traits you've been putting up with and they're now no longer becoming bearable. So there can be a lot of anger, a lot of arguments, that can break out in this energy. And one of the things that happens with this too is each party can feel like they have the right solution. Like, I know what to do. And then when they tell the other party is like in disagreement with that. They're like, no, I don't agree with that. Like, I think we should do it this way. So it can be very difficult to find like some common ground, and here's another thing with this one. If you're not in a current sexual / romantic relationship, this can give you a serious attraction to somebody else, right? And it's most likely mainly based on physical traits, okay? And the danger with that is you're not being discriminatory in that, and you can get yourself involved in a relationship just based on something very physical or superficial and immediately fall into places of emotional stress that can bring. So like right now, you bring the nodes in with this, it's very difficult for anyone to adapt to anybody else in relationships. No one wants to be willing to oblige anybody else. And you can see that in the world too, So there's just going to be a lot of disagreements under this energy. And if it's a love, in particular, if it's a love relationship, it will create a lot of emotional disharmony and stress within that. So very interesting. And now we go to the big thing this week, the new moon in Leo, which I've got up here. There's the sun and moon at 2 degrees Leo. So that's where you want to look in your chart. Get your chart out, or if you know where 2 degrees Leo is in your chart, that's where this energy of this new moon, which is always what, a seeding time, right? Always a time for new beginnings. So if it's in your 11th house, that may be like new groups or new goals or new friends, things like that. But what we got going on with this new moon in Leo is it's opposite. Remember, those, I've been saying it for months now, right? Those 4 planets just all change signs, and they're slow moving planets, those outer planets. So whenever one of the inners gets in touch with them, it's gonna contact all of them. Like when an inner planet goes into a new sign right now, it's gonna contact by aspect all 4 of those planets. So right now, this sun moon conjunction at 2 degrees Leo, the new moon, is opposite Pluto in Aquarius, retrograde at 2 degrees Aquarius. And it just had a sextile with Uranus, which just went into Gemini, if you remember that. And it's also trine the Saturn Neptune conjunction, both retrograde at 2 degrees of Aries. And I just did draw in, note too that Uranus is on the midpoint of the Sun Moon Neptune Saturn conjunction right now. And of course, Pluto and Neptune are still in that sextile that they've been in for basically decades at this point. Um, so it's a lot going on with this new moon, right? And first off, when you think about this new moon, once again, it's Leo energy, just like I was talking about with the sun. So in order to feel emotionally satisfied with this new moon's energy, we need some kind of attention. We need some kind of recognition. We need love. We need that, and we are searching for that. And we have a lot of pride wrapped up in who we are, and we need to have other people acknowledge that. Um, Leo has a need to be itself, right? The problem sometimes with Leo is it forgets to allow everybody else to be themselves too. It can turn that leadership thing into a domination energy where once again you're trying to push your thing onto others. So like we have to be very, very careful with that kind of energy. But we really do want to express our love and affection with Leo, and therefore we can be, once again, like I said, with the sun, very generous, very gregarious, have a very positive in general energy, but it can get very pushy at times. It can literally become an exhibitionist or a voyeur in order to get the attention that it really wants to get. So you want to look, like I said, where that Leo new moon is in your chart, and that's where there's some unique thing that you can be showing the world, and some new beginning, some new talent that you can inject into that energy. Now, when I think about the energy of these aspects going to it, and remember now, because the sun is is ruled by the sun, the ruler of this new moon is actually one of the lights itself. It's the sun ruling this new moon. So really, there's not another planet that has an agenda besides the moon and sun here. But then it does have those aspects, and the first one, the one that it's exact with, almost to the minute. It's 24 minutes of arc only between on the opposition to Pluto. And then it had gone through the sextile to Uranus, and right about a little before that, the trine to Saturn and Neptune. So when you think first about the sextile to Uranus, this really feeds the uniqueness of Leo, right? This really brings out, once again, our most unique talents. We want to do something different, right? We want to have some kind of new experience. We want to have some excitement in our life with this energy, so it's like, so this gives us the opportunities to do that, actually, it's very helpful to that Leo creative energy. It helps us to, it helps other people see our uniqueness. And with Uranus and Gemini too, just so you know, like that can be something where, some of this stuff may come out through technology and science that we're doing, that this is a time, like where we can use those things and really push something out, but we want to break through any kind of condition that's holding us back. And we have some new insights, and that kind of can create new opportunities. We can get some really positive things that are very stimulating to us, very stimulating emotionally and to our mind. Very exciting. And we have a very sharp mind with this energy. It's really tapped into the creative part of the mind, which is once again why it's so in congruence with Leo, which represents the creativity of the self, So it's a very, very effective energy on that. And it does, this is one thing too where it will help Leo with that one problem it has of wanting freedom for itself, but sometimes not willing to give that enough to others. With Uranus here, we're more willing to do that. We're more willing to be like, hey, yeah, I'm willing to give you your freedom too. What do you got that, you can show me, instead of trying to dominate them. But, this is also good energy too for changing your surroundings, whatever environment or environments that, are reflecting you or you're part of. You can put a unique touch into them now that better reflect who you are, that better show off your uniqueness and your talents. And then the trine to Neptune and Saturn, which it just had right before it went exact. I've been talking about these two together for several couple months at least now, how they're, really two kind of opposite energies. So they're working kind of in balance as a conjunction. And what it's all about is getting our ideals, the things that we're very inspired about, the things that drive our imagination, and putting them into reality now, being serious about doing that. So this new moon is showing very potent time to do that. And, this is sextile and trine energy. And I've said this before. These are opportunities to do that, opportunities to use your talent to get your ideals into the real world. That has been really what this energy package has been for several months. Well, this is a really potent time to do that. But you can choose to do nothing, right? This energy, the sextile and trine, isn't going to make you do it. You have to be motivated, and maybe the opposition will be the thing that'll motivate you, or maybe just the pure Leo energy of finally really, wanting that for yourself. But this is like very harmonious energy right now to work with your ideals in a serious way, to get the details down, to organize a plan and go do it. This is just like right now where we can see a path forward in reality, in a place where, okay, I can bring some of these ideals in and I can plug them into certain points right now. Like there's, the mind can see it. They can see a unique opportunity if it's looking for that right now. And when you do that, because if you take action on it, it's a very harmonious energy and it will respond to you. And then the Saturn part is going to give you the results. If you're going to actually sit down there and be patient and do what Saturn, the taskmaster, asks you to do in trying to get these insights and ideals into the real world, and have a patient attitude, take care of all the obligations and duties that are related to it. It's showing, yes, you can do this right now. That, there, that this can help you cut through the fat too, get rid of the distractions, focus on breathe some new life into old structures and forms. and bring them into a new place. It's also a time where we can work on group projects with this energy too. It really, things that are beneficial in a concrete way for all of society. And once again, using some cutting edge science and technology to do that, so we can really, really do that, right now, work with these energies together because there's a balance going on between them and there's a lot of harmony and flow that's going on between them too. And, once again, too, Leo energy and your own ideals and even the Uranus thing, it may be best to be working on this stuff mainly alone. Like, because that may be where we're doing our best thinking. When we can be alone and be in a kind of like semi contemplative, meditative state, and at the same time doing our concrete work and therefore getting some results so we can maybe be most efficient while if we're doing this alone, and not only that, but gain a lot of like knowledge and wisdom from the experience of doing it, of actually just doing that, but yeah, I mean, really, like, sensitive to like how we can see how subtle energy can fit into things right now and bring them down, alchemize that abstraction into something that's a concrete form right now, and just like, just really like, that really helps feed Leo too, like that need for being that recognition for something that we've done, and the steps, and so if I could just end the new moon right there and be like, that's where it's at, I'd be like, this is a super positive new moon, right? But we do have a huge challenge in it, and that is the opposition to Pluto. Because what it's showing is if we take these opportunities and we do this and we're going to bring this out to the world, we're probably going to meet some kind of resistance. And, once again, look around the world right now and the things that different leaders and countries are doing. And that's exactly what happens. Like, they have some ideal, blah, 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 and they try to bring it out into the world. And what they do is they end up meeting some kind of resistance. Okay. And so that's where Pluto really comes in here, is that like this is really going to test the energy of what we're trying to do. And more likely than not, it's going to be some person or authority that's blocking us or somehow getting us really frustrated about what we're doing. And what the sun and moon with Pluto does then it will start to obsess, and it will get so locked in with something that it starts to spin out emotionally and really not see things clearly, so it can can make some really poor decisions. So if that's what you start to feel, when you start to feel that resistance, be very careful about what you do in response to that, because what this energy brings in is what I call the seven deadly sins. Once we recognize who our opposition is, who our enemy is, we start to feel like we need to act underhanded or ruthlessly towards them. And we start to manipulate them, or we try to power trip them, or who knows how far we'll take it. With Pluto, people get violent even with when they get that angry. But what literally happens is something that is a smoldering resentment with this energy can conflagrate into like an inferno of flames and get us into a really bad battle with someone, like open like warfare almost with others, who we just are so angry with because they are what we're perceiving as the resistance point to the ideas and ideals that we're trying to break into reality. And also, because of that, this may be in relation to partnerships you've already had, and they may devolve into some kind of struggle that's so bad that you actually end up separating from that partnership and not being able to deal with it anymore, that it's just too intense. But I tell people, once again, this is the energy. If you know that certain people around you are violent, or they're violent places, that you just want to avoid places like that with this energy, because the proclivity for people to act out, you know, aggressively and violently with this energy is much more likely under this time, under this. Now, how do you handle it well? Well, it can clear the air. It can get to the bottom of what a problem is. Like, if like some authority is like telling you this is the thing that's blocking you, okay, now we've reached the ground level, right? Now we know this is it. And that's where we have to decide, is this a viable option for us still? Is, are we able to rebuild from here? Are we able to reform circumstances or situations that have broken down and are in need of some kind of repair? So, that will at least give us that ground level thing. But once again, we can get very obsessed, with that. And there's a lot of creative energy that's wrapped up in the sun, moon, and Pluto. We can creatively transform the world around us if we can maintain discipline in this and blend it with these other energies of the other three outer planets. We can have incredible power in creatively transforming the world around us. There may be certain projects, things that you've been working on that are reaching a climax right now, and you're going to see what the ground floor result of that is. And so, like, the thing with Pluto is this, right? If you're in power, you can use a lot of that power to benefit yourself, right? And you may get that, but Pluto is like, hey, if you use that in the sphere of influence or power that you have over others around you, no matter how small or large that is, if you take that power that you have and use it not only for your benefit, but for the benefit of those you have influence over, then you're going to have a lot more success. And not only that, the success will last. If you're just in this energy for yourself, you're going to have a great downfall. You might be like on the Epstein file or something. I don't know, like, but the point is, like, the more you can bring this powerfully creative, transformative energy, sun and moon in Leo, in the sign of creativity, Pluto in this is the planet of transformation, you can transform a large part of your world, including yourself, into like new areas of evolution. And so the more you can bring that energy out to the more people, like if you can go beyond your sphere of influence even and bring it out to the greater world, to society, Pluto is going to be your ally here. That's what Pluto wants, especially in Aquarius. It's saying to all this Leo energy, hey, don't be so selfish. Don't make it so much about you, make it for everybody. Make it good for everybody. If you have that kind of power, you know, but you can have a very hard time with this energy if you're going to be selfish about it, and you're going to be called out by others, and you may lose your influence and status within groups, and things like that, just, and remember too that Mercury is in Leo in retrograde too. So like if you go the negative way, you're gonna create your own Mercury retrograde maelstrom right now. It's gonna like just really mess up your communications, your projects, things you want to do. They're just gonna like be a lot of the little annoying things that'll just keep piling up about you. So this new moon in Leo is all about expressing ourselves and our unique talents and the insights and ideals that we're having right now, and trying to put them into reality somehow, and using that energy not only to transform ourselves, but to transform the world around us. But if we get arrogant, if we get selfish like Leo energy can do, then we can find ourselves in nonstop power struggles with this energy. So, very interesting energy to work with this week. Very powerful energy. Very, very powerful. The energy of like like once again, just alchemizing like a lot of insights and ideas into something that's formidable and real, and then gaining a lot of power that you can effectively, creatively transform your world and also to the benefit of others. But if we're going to get small and get stuck and not be able to get out of that, then we're going to find ourselves in a constant battle with this energy. So, really interesting. And remember, it can really spill over too into personal relationships with that Venus square Mars South node this week going on too. All right, that's what I got for us this week. Next week, I will do the August monthly. I won't. I will not only do the week of the 28th through the 3rd, but I will do the August monthly. Now I know Chiron's going to go retrograde next week and join the retrograde parade, which I talked about in the monthly. But also Venus is going to go into Cancer next week, and then of course, since it's changing signs, it's going to get very interactive with those 4 planets that are at the beginning of their signs too. So that'll be a lot of next week's talk, and then we'll see what's going on in August, in the month of August too. So this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. I really need you to pass the link on right now to somebody else to pay me back. If you'd like to give a donation, a currency donation, no amount is too small. First of all, my Venmo is at Matthew, and there's 2 T's in Matthew, hyphens in the middle, and then Lawton, Lauten, or my Cash App is $ Matthew Lawton, all one word, and once again, capital M and L and 2 T's and then H. Now, the best way you guys can support me though is to check out the website www.astrologicalwinds.com. I have all my services listed there. I've been a professional astrologer since 2002. Did 7 years of schooling and training to do that. So I've done many charts over the years. Would love to do yours. It's definitely not the same as getting a computer printout or having a friend who has a book tell you about your astrology. It's way deeper than that. And remember, your chart never leaves you. You know, we buy all kinds of different things, invest in all kinds of different things, and our chart stays with us forever. So invest in yourself. And in fact, little thing I'm doing right now, if it's your birthday month and you want a birth chart reading or a predictive reading or the combo of the 2 of them, get 10% off if it's in your birthday month. So act quickly if you want to do that and give yourself the birthday gift. You deserve it. You know, predictive readings just like the reading I do right now for the week, except it's for you for the year. So, you know, do relationship charts, relocation charts, children's charts, elections for the best timing of events. If you're a group, I do lectures, I do workshops, classes, mini readings for events, stuff that can even be done online. I am still looking for a couple more beginner students to try to do a live beginners class, but I've got podcast stuff that you can buy for beginners classes if you're needing tutoring. I can do that. And if you're a professional who needs astrological advice, either monthly or weekly or even daily, I do work with clients on that level too. All that stuff, check the website out, my contacts there, or my other email is matthue823@gmail.com. Thanks so much, folks. We'll see y'all next week, and we'll look at August together, and we'll look at Venus going into Cancer, another sign she really likes to be in. I'll see y'all then.